Congressman. We may be old friends, but we're not yet old. I'd like to greet the WPO officials. John Rob, thank you for coming to the Philippines. I hope you find this as good as we do. Basil Long, also a long-time friend. You know, Basil wrote me about this meeting in January. Unfortunately, in February, a conference about 15 Chief Justices was supposed to be held in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, March 2 and 3. But the Chief Justice of Australia requested that the conference be rescheduled to today. So I couldn't back out from Basil. I had to back off from the Chief Justice of Australia. So I'm here. Doris Magsaysayho, the chairperson of the Philippine chapter. You know, Doris is famous in Philippine jurisprudence because of her case entitled Doris versus People of the Philippines. Doris Ho won unanimously in the Supreme Court of the Philippines against the people of the Philippines. And the doctrine in that case is very well known. I wouldn't tell you except that Doris won handily against the government of the Philippines. I should also greet the officials of the Philippine government here, Chairman Bayani Fernando and his lovely wife, Marites, who's mayor of Marikina, the #1 city in Metro Manila. Congressman Jing Lapus. He's called Congressman, but in my book, he's really a businessman. He's probably the economist of the House of Representatives. He was president of the Land Bank of the Philippines before he became a politician. A good politician, as a matter of fact. Of course, the diplomatic corps, my good friend, Ambassador Yu Yamasaki of Japan. You know, he just gave us, of course, the Japanese government, but through his effort, 300 million pesos, that's about $6 million, to help build the Philippine Judicial Academy. We're building a school for judges, continuing education for our judges to solve one of our problems, which, believe it or not, is lack of knowledge of the law by Philippine judges. Paul Jones. The American government has helped us also in many ways, the judiciary of the Philippines. Only last week, I don't know if you know, the Philippine Supreme Court inaugurated the full computerization of the Sandigan Bayan. Sandigan Bayan is our anti-graft court. And by full computerization, I mean that all the pleadings, all the orders are in digital form and can be accessed through the internet, such that parties, in that case lawyers and the general public and media, can access the status of every case pending in that very important court, all because of the assistance of the USAID. Thank you very much, Paul. There are other ways by which the US government is assisting the Philippine judiciary. As a matter of fact, we held a conference, international conference, about 45 countries attended the first international conference on judicial reform, held in the Philippines last November, sponsored financially by the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. They gave us the money. And so everybody was invited for free. The judiciaries of the world were here, including the Russian Chief Justice. And as a result of that conference, one of the results of that conference, you might not know, is that the Philippine Supreme Court was invited by the Russian Supreme Court to send our head of our Judicial Reform Office to give them technical assistance on how to set up a Judicial Reform Office in the Russian Federation. Just come back last week, full of praises for the Russians Well, I told her, she, by the way, she's in Australia now, attending that conference also together with 4 other members of the Philippine Supreme Court in my stead. So I sent 4 members of our court. There are 15 members of the Philippine Supreme Court, 14 associate justices and a chief justice. I told her, please tell my friend, Chief Justice Lebedev of Russia, that my ambition is to render technical assistance to the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, talking of important people, I should also tip my hat to Wash Sisip. Ladies and gentlemen, when Wash Sisip came in and Doris Ho asked me, how do I introduce Wash Sisip? I said, well, if he was an old man, I would say, the grand old man of Philippine business. But since he's still very young, we'll just say the grand man of Philippine business. I say that because he's chairman of the board, among many other companies, of the Asian Institute of Management, where for 32 years, my wife had been teaching. So having said that, I will report to my wife that I did her a favor today. And my dear friends in WPO and the WPO, both foreign and local, I'm singularly honored to have the opportunity to address you today upon the invitation of my longtime friend Basil Ong, the Regional Vice President Asia of the World Presidents Organization. I know that WPO is composed of entrepreneurs and executives worldwide who are not only the most successful, even more important, they are accomplished business persons who passionately desire to share their fortune and knowledge with the rest of humanity, especially with the less fortunate and the less privileged. In other words, WPO is peopled by successful and wealthy individuals who have a social conscience. As some of you may know, I have once been a member of the Young Presidents Organization, the green garden from which the members of WPO are eventually picked to mature and bear fruit. Just for the record, I'd like to acknowledge that it was Tony Gonzalez, who's seated out there as the founder of the Philippine chapter of WPO, who recruited me into WPO. Tony, thank you very much. In my case, though, I chose to forgo the distinction and the rewards of WPO membership. I opted to pursue my legal career more vigorously when I turned 49. The age when all WPOers, as you know, needed to make that critical choice of whether to join the WPO. That's still good, John? Whether I chose rightly to devote more time and effort at lawyering and less to entrepreneurship is a matter that will always be debated by my children and grandchildren, indeed by my personal historians. However, the fact remains that indeed I made the choice many years ago. Thereafter, I steeled myself to render demanding and sometimes thankless public service. As I graduated from the bar to the bench, and eventually to the highest judicial position in my country. At this point in my career, whenever I poignantly look back, I always feel grateful at the education I absorbed as a WPO member in the late 70s and in the early 80s. Truly, I shall cherish always the blessings of the social and professional interactions I had with fellow WPOers. Reminiscing my prejudicial years, I feel fortunate to have gained extensive business background in WPO and in the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as in the Management Association of the Philippines, in both of which I was likewise active. Because of my background in both law and business, I developed a philosophy of combining law and economics as the enduring basis of an egalitarian society. Indeed, the fortunate combination of these two disciplines has instilled my advocacy of justice and jobs,